So I really wanted to come here today and to share what I do and share part of my passion. And so Susan was so nice and she reached out to me and she said, Marcy, come do a presentation. And I said, what should we do it on? Like, I'm open. I certainly can speak about many different things. I have lots of life experiences. And she said, what about reflection and acceptance and staying positive? I'm like, you know what? I haven't done one of those. I've done little bits and pieces from place to place in different presentations that I do, but I've never done a full presentation on reflection, acceptance, and staying positive. And you know what? We're not taught that in school, are we? No, not at all. Not at all. So we're going to deep dive into it. Please, if you feel emotionally upset about what I say, please feel free to talk with me afterwards. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you. And hopefully to be able to help calm some of the things that I've spoken about today that may have upset you. So here we go. Our agenda. Our agenda is the introduction, reflection, acceptance, shifting hope, staying positive, and living well. Those are all things we've heard before, but we're going to combine it all together. So I have a bachelor's in psychology, and I have a bachelor's in social work. I also have a master's in social work. So while I was getting my master's, which was a one-year program online, I ended up having 4 foster children at home, 3 of my children still at home. I was working a full-time job, and I was the chair of 2 committees. A little busy, right? A little busy. The greatest part about all of that is I graduated valedictorian. That, to me, was quite the accomplishment, especially, thank you, I really appreciate that, especially when people found out how many children I had home and that I was still working full-time and a chair of 2 committees. So it was a great honor to be named valedictorian. I didn't know until about 10 minutes before we were to walk the stage, and they said, "Can you do a speech?" And I was like, oh, this is a high and yet a low too, right? So luckily I did have something, because I always want to encourage children to do the best they can and to shoot for the stars. Because as we know, the world is our oyster, and we can do whatever we choose to do in life that brings us joy. And this being who I am today and working how I am today brings me joy. I have many years experience embracing hospice. So I worked hospice in Canada, and I also worked hospice down here. 2 different realms, but hospice is hospice. Like I said, I'm the mom of 7 biological children. I have 3 stepchildren and 9 foster. I'm a spouse, community-minded. I'm a businesswoman. I actually have 2 businesses. So I have my Still Alive Inside business, which is a for-profit, and I have a nonprofit also that raises funds to be able to go out and educate paid care staff in our assisted living facilities on, I don't want to say proper, but enhancing what they already know to be able to support people living with dementia and to care for them in a more positive way. I am forever changed at the age of 14. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. I love the colors green and black. I'm not wearing either one today, but in the picture I am. I am a farmer's daughter. Yeah, ooh, did I have fun as a child, but man, was it hard work. I loved the idea of freedom. I didn't like the fact that I was the baby in the family and I got to take care of all the babies on the farm. All the babies. I can't stand the smell of lilacs or lavender. And so why do I tell you those things? I tell you these things because if I'm no longer able to speak for myself, these are very important things to me, and these are really great topics to be able to bring up to me to maybe help me get through a situation. So the lavender and the lilacs, I can't stand the smell of it because it gives me an instant headache. And if I'm in the hospital and I'm unable to speak for myself and somebody comes in and goes, oh, that essential oil will calm her right down, we're going to put some lavender in her essential oil, guess what's happening? Dukes are up, gloves are off, because it gives me an instant headache. So having people understand that about me is really important, so that we don't ever have to have that confrontation. So we don't ever have to have that behavior come out in me. All right? So at the very, very bottom, I know it says click to something there, but it says I make mistakes. I have to admit that in the very beginning, because I'm not perfect and I'm not an expert. There's no one that is an expert on any topic. I am an expert on me, but that's it. I do specialize and I love what I do, but I am not an expert. You are an expert on you, which is really important. So these things are in my living will. How many of you have something like that in your living will? Yeah? Very good. Very good. Give people caring for you in the future the opportunity to know you better and to be able to care for you and help you if you are distressed. All right? Let's move on. So reflection. Reflection is recalling past events that bring about serious thought or consideration. So while I was doing this, I remembered another presentation that I gave that I put all the words up on there and nobody was paying attention to me. They were reading the words. So I held back on putting them up there, so I reflected on what I should do. So highs: marriage, children, career moves, large purposes. We all have had those really great highs. Lows: marriage, children, career moves, large purchases. We've all been like, I can't be any lower than where I am today. Right? Interesting that we can all sit here and giggle about this because of the fact, while we're going through it, the coasting through, marriage, children, career moves, large purchases, we don't always think about it, do we? The greatest thing, and I think I've got a slide coming up here soon. No, it's not there. I'm not going to say it. I'll wait until the slide comes along. But as we're going through this, it's not something that we consider. We live life, right? And so it's interesting to me that when I am gone and I haven't seen my nephews for a long time, I go and I see them and I'm like, whew, okay, you changed. And it was because I had that distance and the ability to see them at a different point. My brain remembers them the last time I saw them. And that's what I'm expecting. Even if I'm not expecting it, my brain still says that's what they look like. So reflection is a really big piece of life, but we don't always do it, especially when we have a life-altering diagnosis. When we have been handed that life-altering diagnosis, most times our emotion that comes out, or the questions that we ask are, I'm really alarmed. Oh my Lord, I'm scared. This is not something that I expected. What's the future going to look like? What are the changes that are going to happen? What if this happens? What if that happens? What ifs? How will we do it? What if other people find out? That's a big one, isn't it? That's a very big one. Will it be painful? What will others think of me? What did I do to deserve this? I hear that one a lot. And I'm really intrigued by that question. Is there a way to get out of this? Man, if there was, we'd be taking it, wouldn't we? Yeah. I gave a talk at a mobile home park, and I stood up in front of everybody. They were eating their donuts and their coffee, and I stood up there and I waited, and finally they got quiet, and I said, all right, so we're going to talk about one of two things, and you all get to choose which one we're going to talk about. And I said, so, are you ready? And they said, yep, we're ready. I said, we're going to talk about death, or we're going to talk about dementia. And they said, oh, dementia. let's talk about dementia. I said the lesser of the two evils, right? So is there a way to get out of this? Who can I trust? This shook me to my core. Do I have it in me to adjust? Little do we remember that very last question, do I have it in me to adjust, is throughout life. We've had these things already, haven't we? Even though it was a high, our marriage was a high, and how wonderful, and our future looked bright, it still was scary. There were still moments where we were scared. Our children, after we've had children, it still can be alarming. When I had my fourth child, I thought, by that point, I know things pretty good. I'm pretty good at this. But when they told me that he was breech and that I had to have a version, and then when my doctor said to me, push like you've never pushed before, and screamed down the hallway for the neonatologist, man, it was a high and a low all in the same moment. Career moves. What will they think of me? Anything new can be a high and also make us question. Large purchases. Is there a way to get out of this? Right? I mean, I've driven off the car lot and gone, oh no, maybe I shouldn't have done this. Is there a way I can get out of this? We've also had marriages that bring us to that low, the changes that happen in marriages, right? The evolution of marriage. Children with their unknowns. Yeah, 5 girls and 2 boys is what I have. Whew, I made it. They're all out on their own. They're all successful. So I know I'm doing pretty good. But those unknowns, I mean, there were days, they're smart kids. Like, my children are very smart. And there were days where I was like, I just don't know what to do with them. My 2 boys ended up using a thumb drive to bypass the firewall of the school library Wi-Fi to play their games on it. And when I got the call, Marcy, your boys are not allowed in the library anymore. And I said, oh, what for? And they told me, and I said, well, they did that at the public library too. And they're not allowed at the public library either anymore. And they said, well, you know what? We need to put their smarts to actually some sort of use. And I said, well, you got me. I didn't understand the internet. I didn't understand how anyone could use a thumb drive to bypass a whole security system. But man, those boys did. And they're doing good today. Actually, one's a police officer, and I always joke, so... Career moves, yeah. What did I do to deserve this? Have you ever got yourself into a career where you're like, oh, geez, right? I don't know how I'm going to get myself out of this one. But we always hope for tomorrow, don't we? We hope for maybe there's something else we can do. Large purchases. What if I did this? What if I did that? Right? Especially those new homes. We love to walk into the homes that we're buying and go, tear that wall down. I don't like that wallpaper. So reflection. We have been doing this our whole life. The thing is, we don't ever think about when we do it. But when we have that life-altering diagnosis, it's really important to take a look at these. All right? Very, very important. So acceptance. Acceptance is about shifting hope. And I say that, I learned that actually in hospice when I was working with some families, that their idea of hope was always about recovery and was about cure. And unfortunately, when the family member was at a place in their life where that was no longer anything that was being considered anymore, I had to sit down and I had to take a look at my life, and I had to say, how can I help this family get through? And I came up with the saying, shifting hope. So we can have hope even in hospice. It's just a different type of hope. And so we're going to shift that hope Because unfortunately, right now, there's no cures for what we have that ails us. We haven't even cured the common cold. And I'm not saying that to be sad or to upset anybody. It's the reality. And so we have to come to a place to understand and accept that reality. What am I to do? What skills and abilities do I still have left? And evolving this entire time. So shifting hope. Our bodies were designed to expire. From the day you were born, you've been dying. We just didn't give it that emphasis, did we? But understanding that we have one life to live, we have one go around, one spin. Make it count. I told my foster kids that from the day they came to me. This is it, guys. This is it. Stay curious and make it count. Really important. Because this is your life, and you get to make those choices. So shifting hope, like I had said, is no longer about cure or recovery. Shifting our hope to, how can I make the best of what I have left? I'm at that point where I have more life behind me than I have ahead of me. That hit me real hard. Hit me very hard. What am I to do? What skills and abilities? What can I bring to life? I ask myself that every single morning, and there's days where I go, I can't bring anything. I'm spent. I'm done. Today is about coasting. Today is about getting through today so that I can face tomorrow. And we have been evolving this entire time. Like I said about my nephews, we only notice them at pivotal moments. What's your pivotal moment? When are we going to start looking back on that reflection and saying, we've had highs and lows all along? We've lived through it. The separation and the reintroduction, I've had that happen with some people that I don't like to call them clients because that puts me in a power position with them. They're not my clients, they're my people that I serve. When I've had that separation between the people that I serve, and then I come back to them again, being able to notice what's happened. And sadly, what happens with dementia and with other cognitive issues is they're always talking about the decline. So what I do with some people that I actually go out and I support, I use worksheets. How many of you guys have been doing 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade math in the last year? 1, 2. We don't really go back to that time, do we? But you know what amazes me? I have a lady that's very near the end stages of her dementia journey. And I said to her, I can't figure out what 60 divided by 12 is. 5. I said, where did you get that? She said, in the back of that notebook that we all had, there was a chart. And I memorized the chart. I said, why did you memorize the chart? She goes, let's not talk about that. I said, okay. She goes, I was an only child and I was very lonely. I said, well, I'm glad you memorized the chart because you gave me the answer. And that brought about conversation. We were able to build from that. So now she and I sit and do worksheets, and she starts spilling the beans to me. She's telling me everything, which is great. All righty. So I had said that my life changed when I was 14 years old. On the dairy farm, children are brought up in a way to not have much emotion. So my father would always say to me, don't cry, babies cry. So I held those emotions for a very long time, and I didn't cry, even though I needed to cry, and man, did I need to cry. My mother and my father had divorced, and my mother had remarried. She remarried a man that he said to me, why don't you cry? Like, I don't see you crying. You get hurt and you don't cry. You get angry, but you don't cry. Why don't you let that emotion out? And I said, because babies cry. And he turned to me, and it was such a life-altering moment. He said, Marcy, I'm an adult, and I give you permission to cry. I cried for 3 days. I bawled. Unfortunately, what happened with this gentleman was about 4 years later, liver cancer got him, and he died in our home. But what he taught me and what he helped me go through is worth all the pain in the world that I feel from missing him. And one of the lessons was, there will be peaks and valleys in your life. Peaks and valleys, he used to say to me. When you're climbing to that peak, remember, there's a valley not far behind. But that gives you the opportunity to climb to another peak. And that hit me really hard as a 12, 13-year-old child. Hit me really, really hard. And I internalized that. I was not your typical 9th grade child. I certainly wasn't. He did die when I was in my 10th grade. But to be able to have that was really, really important to me, have that experience and have that man in my life. Alrighty, so getting back to that life-altering illness. There's truth to this statement, a lot of truth to this statement. The biggest hurdle sometimes is getting to a place of acceptance. If we can get to that place of acceptance, and I'm not talking people with cognitive challenges, all right? Because people with cognitive challenges may not always know that there's something going on, all right? So I can't expect somebody to come to a place to acceptance if they don't know, all right? But for people that do know what's going on in their lives, it's really important that the sooner we accept this, the easier it can become. Interestingly enough, working in hospice, I've had conversations with people, again, with not with the cognitive challenges, but they have said to me, I suspected something was happening. Or I was totally blindsided by that life-altering diagnosis. So acknowledging the reality, moving forward, finding meaning. This is not a fixed state. Life is not a fixed state. You can live somewhere for 35, 40, 50, 60 years, and life is still evolving. So it's not a fixed state. And acceptance does not mean in the absence of pain. So just because we accept doesn't mean that the pain goes away. So acceptance, acknowledging the reality, the new norm. We heard that during COVID, didn't we? A lot of us fought it. I don't want this. I don't like the new norm. The new norm was staying 6 feet away from everybody and wearing a mask, right? Luckily, we worked through that, but understanding that our forecast has changed. Sitting down and talking to families and saying to them, this isn't the future you planned, is it? It's usually when they break down. No. My future did not include this illness. I go, okay, so what are we going to do from here? Where do we go from here then? It doesn't mean happiness. You know what? Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has many stages in accepting and understanding grief, and being angry is one of them. And it's okay if you're angry. In fact, I do this thing with a lot of the people that I serve. I say to them, I'll be a sounding board, but you have to tell me I'm going to be a sounding board first. So if I walk in your door and you just start blasting at me, I'm going to be taken aback. But if you say, Marcy, I need to do the sounding board exercise, I will be that sounding board. That doesn't mean I try to solve anything. That doesn't mean that I talk back to them. I just sit and listen and nod and reflect back to them, that must be hard. This must be a terrible thing to have to go through. I'm sorry that this is happening. But I give them that space to be angry. Acknowledging the reality is recognizing and internalizing the permanence of the situation, which is a hard one again. But this is where we are, highs and lows. So how do we move forward? We can make plans and set goals. We can still do that. I had a lady that she was dying. She was in the hospice. We knew that she was going to probably die within the week. And she said, "Do you think it'd be okay if I set a goal?" Absolutely. What's your goal? "I'd like to talk to so many people." And I said, "Well, I can help you with that goal." And she said, "Well, I didn't know if anybody would think it was ridiculous because I know it's ending soon. But I didn't want anyone to laugh at me because they thought that I was setting a goal for nothing." But we can set goals and we can make plans. Moving forward also means to continue with that new mindset. We shifted hope. No more cure. This is where we are. So we're going to shift hope and we're going to face tomorrow understanding that we have a new mindset. Find meaning. Seeing life through new eyes. I had a psychology professor when I was going through my degree in psychology say to me, "Marcy, I was struggling. I was struggling with some things in my life, and my mother had done something to me that I had a really, really hard time accepting." And he said to me, "Marcy, do you understand that we view life like we're sitting in a movie theater?" I said. He said, "We have that lens, and we're viewing our movie called life. And what you need to do in this moment is you need to get up out of your movie theater and go sit in your mother's." And I said, "Oh." And he said, "Sitting in your mother's theater will give you a new perspective and a new understanding that maybe things are happening in her life that are causing this issue in your life. Maybe she is looking back on her life and saying, I don't want my daughter to go through that, so I'm going to say this and I'm going to do this to my daughter to keep her from doing it." Gotcha. So see life through new eyes. Really big piece to finding meaning. Discover meaning and begin to live with intentional growth. I love that saying, intentional growth. That means I'm going to set some goals and I'm going to reach for those goals and I'm going to do it with intention. We all can do that. This is not a fixed state, so it is a process. When I was doing bereavement counseling for the hospice, one of the things I would say to anybody that came into my office was, it's all about movement. Whether it's forward or backwards, keep moving. It's in stagnation that we surrender. And there's a big difference between surrender and accept. So this is not the absence of pain. Acceptance is not the absence of pain. It's acknowledging the loss. Use the pain of the loss to fuel your goals. Shift that mind. All right, so illness does not always equal sadness or loss. There is a great deal to learn in discomfort. Did you know that we only learn in discomfort? Isn't that crazy? If we are comfortable, why do we have to learn? I don't have to learn. I don't have to do anything if I'm comfortable. But you set something down in front of me that I'm uncomfortable and I'm excited about, I'm going to learn it. I'm going to internalize it. So there is a great deal to learn in discomfort. The appreciation of the present time, right here and now. I tell a story of a woman that I went to see when I was doing my internship at a hospice in Pennsylvania, and she had brain cancer, glioblastoma. And I went in and I had lots on my mind. I had soccer on my mind, I had dinner on my mind, I had an issue that I had with a friend of mine on my mind, and I went in and I said, "Hello," and she goes, "What is troubling you?" And I said, this is not the way I wanted to do this. Can I get a take two? And she said, "Yeah, sure." So I said, "One moment." Went back out, stood outside her door for a minute. I did close the door. I stood out there and I said, I need to come up with something that allows me to be fully present for her, because she doesn't deserve what I'm going through. She doesn't need to carry the weight of that. That's mine to carry. But I need to figure out a way to leave that at the door. So I called it leaving my outside skin at the door. And I literally imagined myself taking my skin off and leaving it at the door. And I walked in and said, "Hey, nice to see you." And she said, "Much better." She deserved that. She definitely deserved that. Love and growth, embracing change, offering assistance, being unselfish, cultivating compassion, the inevitability of loss. Relationship strengthening, discovering resiliency. We aren't taught resiliency in school, are we? Maybe out on the playground sometimes we're taught a bit of resiliency, right? But it's not a subject that is taught in school. Or coping. I said, oh my goodness, if we could teach people how to cope, we would have so many changes in this world. Finding purpose, understanding values, and grief is part of your life process. Grief is not just losing a loved one, it's losing a job, it's losing a friendship, it's losing moving, it's losing that promotion at work. It's all those different things. That is grief too. And so being able to process that throughout our lifetime is important. All right, so the second thing that my stepfather taught me, I was a teenager, typical teenager, and I was having a bad day, and he said to me, "Marcy, when you get to the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on. Because eventually what will happen, it won't feel so hard, and you'll be able to climb that rope again." Really important things to say to a teenager. He was such a smart man. I still have his sweater. He had a gray vest sweater that has 3 buttons and little red on the pockets. And every once in a while, when I'm feeling really down and I don't think I can keep going, I go into my closet, I pull out that vest, I button it up, I stick my hands in those pockets, and I can hear him say, "You got this." So I still do it too. I'm human. Staying positive. Once you've reached that place of acceptance or fate, whatever we want to call it, it's really important to set goals. Like I told you with that woman, she knew she was near the end, but she wanted to set some goals. We are goal-oriented. We seek the pleasure. So if I know at the very end of my life, if I set a goal and I'm able to accomplish it, that's going to release some endorphins in my mind. In my brain, it's going to make me feel better. Celebrate progress and those small victories. For sure, celebrate them. Build a stronger support system, because support isn't always family. I just lost, coming up on 2 weekends ago, a really good friend of mine that actually was a board member on my nonprofit. She died unexpectedly. And We called each other soul sisters, chosen sisters, right? And boy, was she a support system for me. She was so wonderful. I could call her up on the phone and she'd be like, okay, I'm just going to listen and then I'm going to tell you what to do. I said, well, I may not do what you want me to do. And she goes, that's fine. I still need to tell you what I'm going to do. I said, all right. We're also need to prioritize us care. So I know it used to be self-care, and I'm changing that term. I don't want to use self-care anymore because there's a lot of guilt that goes with self-care. When we say I'm taking care of myself, there's a lot of guilt that tags along with that. But if we change it to us care, because you have to take care of yourself in order to continue to be in the partnership. So when you're taking care of yourself, you're actually taking care of both of you. And that's a big piece to remember. Heck, if I could go back and accept those casseroles after those babies, I'd take them. I'd love to take people up on that nap offer. Marcy, you look exhausted. Go take a nap. No, I got this. I got this. Me now? Oh, you're darn right I'm taking the nap. See you later. Celebrate progress and small victories. Build a strong support system. Prioritize us care and well-being. What do we know about well-being? We know that it's all individualized. My well-being might not be the same as your well-being, but your well-being is just as important as my well-being. I spoke to a gentleman this morning about setting up to talk with him about what he's going through, and I said to him, how are you doing today? And he said, you know what, Marcy, I understand what you said there. And I said, what did I say there? And he goes, you didn't ask me how I'm doing. You asked me how I'm doing today. I said, yep, you're right, I did. I did, for sure. Because I knew yesterday may have been a good day. It may have been a bad day. But I want him to focus on today and what he has. So remain focused and understand your energy. I say I do my best every single day, but my best isn't always my best. My best is the best that I could do that day. So it's important to understand your energy and do the best that you can in that day. Set goals and break them down. Man, when I was younger, my goals were this big, right? And I had the energy to do it too. But then as I got older, my goals got to be a little bit smaller, and I needed to break them down because they were more attainable if I was able to break them down more. So identify those goals, make a plan, break down the task, and set smaller achievable goals. Because again, we are pleasure seekers. We love to seek pleasure and know that we've accomplished something. Celebrate progress and small victories. Acknowledge your achievements. Recognize and celebrate both big and small wins. Reward yourself. So my husband and I have been on this kick about how we're making our own yogurt, we're making our own jam, we make our own bread, we only eat vegetables, and we have meat, and then on the weekend we have these really great desserts. Because we made it through the week. We ate everything we were supposed to eat, but now we're gonna go splurge on a really great deluxe sundae. And you know what gets me through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? No, and I'm gonna get that sundae again. Darn right, darn right. Track your progress. Keep a record of your accomplishments to see how far you've come. Because like we talked about, when we're living it day by day, we don't see those. I don't know how many people I've had say to me, well, looking back on what happened with my dad or my husband or my wife or my daughter, now I can kind of see what was happening 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So I say, when you start to recognize even the smallest little change, start to keep track. Because as we live life, we don't pay attention. But if we separate ourselves from it a little bit, that's when we start to pay attention. All right. So reflection. Our highs, marriage, children, career moves, large purchases, goal achieved, positive learning. Today, walking out of here, this is the reflection I want to see you guys have. Next week, a month from now, a year from now, these are your highs. They're also your lows. And the greatest part is we're going to coast through them too. Because life is like that. We've had our highs and lows. We've had our coasting through. So build a strong support system, connect with life. Find a community or a person. And if somebody volunteers and says, I'm your person, and you don't like them, find another person. You don't have to stick with one person if they don't fit. That's one thing I say about our senior care community out here in Sarasota and Manatee County. If you find somebody that says, I can help, but they don't actually connect with you, find someone else. You need to feel you can trust and that you can move forward. Journal. Doesn't have to be on paper. It can be audio, and it could also be video. Communicate your needs. This is my favorite one, the very last one. Build a to-do list and have it handy. Because what happens? Oh, let me help. I can help. I swear I can help. What do you need help with? And in that moment, we go, even though in our head we're going laundry and taking this person to their appointment and helping me, get something cleaned up and this and that. If we make a to-do list, if we actually have that to-do list and someone says, what can I do to help? Pick one. If you'd like, pick two. So much easier than being called in it and having to speak about it. Prioritize your self-care and well-being. Make sure this is physician approved, okay? Because everybody's different. Their bodies are different. So really important that us care and that self-care and well-being is take breaks, exercise, eat a healthy diet, eat what our body was meant to take in. We weren't meant to take in ultra-processed food. I know it's easy. I know it's simple. I get it. I'm right there with you on a lot of things. But our bodies do expire, and they're built to expire. Get enough sleep. As we sleep, did you all know that actually our spinal fluid goes up and washes over our brain and gets rid of those toxins and those waste? Yeah. So hydration is really important too, and getting enough sleep. Practice mindfulness or meditation. I color to meditate. It doesn't have to be sitting in that yoga pose, right? Just let your mind wander. My husband doesn't want me to meditate in the shower anymore because I come out with these great ideas. And he's like, all right, enough. We got enough. We don't need any more great ideas. My IT guy says to me all the time, what's shiny this week? Whatever. Live well. Visualize success. Focus on what you can control. Practice gratitude. Again, meditate in different forms. Invite distractions. Instead of running from those distractions, invite them. Go sit in the park and listen to music, even if your dishes aren't done. Because guess what? When you get home, your dishes are going to be there for you. Right? Choose, connect, and communicate. Now is the time to embrace others. Really important. When I lived in Nova Scotia, I would say to people, cast your net far and wide. Gather in as many resources as you possibly can while you still can. Because guess what? They're the resources you like. If not, the healthcare system's going to gather in those resources for you. And they don't have emotion. The healthcare system does not have emotion. All right? Gather those resources in for yourself. So this is what I was looking for way back in the very beginning. You have been 100% successful in getting to this point in your life here today. How many people have recognized that You've actually been 100% successful. So when you walk out of here, I want you to keep repeating that. I have been 100% successful. Pick and choose, because nothing is set in stone. Make it your own. You are here now. I've already said this one. No one gets out of this world alive. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? Here and now, today. Are you shifting hope? Are you taking a look at the fact that you actually have been through highs and lows in life and you've made it? Yeah. So I want to thank you. We have these choices, don't we? So I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you allowing me to be here and speak to you. Go forward and know that there are supports out there for you. Thank you. Do we have questions or concerns? I appreciate you guys staying a little bit later. It's probably went over my time. Yes, you're very welcome. You have made it here 100%. You've made it here. So you're very welcome. You're very welcome.